Do you like playing with balls? No, I'm not talking about footballs. I mean your balls. Our friends at Manscaped, the global leaders in below-the-waist grooming, want you to shave your pubes with the Tom Brady of ball trimmers, the brand new Lawnmower 4.0. Only the GOAT technology for the greatest balls of all time. When you're going towards the end zone, make sure you use the right tools for the job and choose Manscaped. 2 million men worldwide trust them, so join the movement with our exclusive offer by using code DTR at manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping.
Stafford under pressure, and a tuck it, and he's in! Darrell Henderson, he's off and running! Has Woods, touchdown! Cooper Kupp just went up and took it away.
Van Jefferson for the touchdown.
Aaron Donald smothers him. Jalen Ramsey with the pop-up. Sacked by Leonard Floyd, having a day again.
Darius Williams with a diving hit. Jordan Fuller comes up with his second interception of the night.
All right, guys, welcome back to Downtown Rams. As always, I'm your host, Alexis Kraft, joined here with my co-host, Jake Ellenbogen. And guys, we are coming to you the day after a Rams loss. The Rams lost on Sunday Night Football to the Tennessee Titans in Los Angeles. They lost 28-16, stunned a lot of people. I mean, the Titans, we all knew they were a good team, but we did not expect the Rams to come out and play the way that they did. Was a very intense game to watch, Jake. It was very tough if you're a Rams fan, and a lot of people, are upset with different things that happened in the game. And I'm going to just give my brief thought on it before I, hand it over to you and you'll give yours. But, guys, I think in all honesty, we lost because we played bad. I see a lot of excuses on Twitter. I see a lot of people, making up reasons or blaming refs, which I do think the refs were bad, but they are not the reason that we lost. Just making excuses and that type of thing. And the reality of the situation is the Rams came out and we did not play as well as the Titans. We didn't execute as well as the Titans. We got out-coached. Our play calling was bad. Overall, it was just kind of a nightmare. Matthew Stafford had a really bad game, which happens in the NFL, so we shouldn't overreact. Quarterbacks have bad games. But guys, that's what it comes down to. There's really no excuse. There's no conspiracy. We just got outplayed by a very good team. The Titans are a good team, and I think people should start giving them credit for that. In my opinion, I don't think their offense is super exciting. They have a lot of big players on there. They did lose Derrick Henry, their best player on offense. I'll give them that. But, their defense really stepped up against us, Jake. I think that's what it came down to. Their defense put the pressure on our offensive line. Our offensive line couldn't handle it. Matthew Stafford couldn't handle it. And we just couldn't make enough plays to win the game. And that's my thought on it. I think, unfortunately, it was just one of those games that we didn't play well and we lost. What do you think?
Well, I think what it comes down to is, when you get that pressure, the interior pressure that you get out of, Jeffrey Simmons of the Titans and Danico Autry and, just Harold Landry and getting 5 sacks on Matthew Stafford, who was barely being sacked this season. I thought the offensive line had done an incredible job to this point. Before the game. This season, they had only allowed about a sack or a little bit over a sack per game, which is one of the top in the league as far as averages are concerned. But, all in all, I just thought the Titans, their defense dictated this football game. And, the Rams defense played extremely well, I thought. Holding, anytime you're able to hold, A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, under 80 total yards, on 9 catches, that's saying a lot. The fact that Jeff Swaim is the only one that was a recipient of a touchdown pass from Ryan Tannehill, and he was the third leading receiver, tells you all you need to know. In addition to that, Dante Foreman had 5 carries for 29 yards. He was the only one that could even run the football in that game. They ran 26 times for 69 yards. That's 2.7 yards per carry. Thought the defense did an incredible job, despite the fact the offense just wasn't their best self in this game. And a lot of people were starting to ask the question, was this a lot like the Bears game with Vic Fangio in 2018 when he really set the blueprint on how to stop Sean McVay's offense? Did Mike Vrabel's Titans figure out a way to stop Matthew Stafford and company? I mean, obviously, this is their second loss of the year. This is not their first, but it felt different than the Cardinals game. It felt like the Titans defense played a lot better than the Cardinals defense did. It felt like, obviously there was a fluke interception, Stafford's hit while he's throwing and it gets picked off, by the Cardinals. With this game, though, I felt like the Titans really, they did a nice job of generating turnovers. We talked about, at least I talked about in the last show, Kevin Byard being a big time player and, a guy that can break open the game. And, coming into the league, you look at a few guys that are around that level of playmaking ability. I mean, he is one of the league leaders in interceptions since he's entered the league. And of course, he had one in this game, pick six, interception that put the defense, with their back against the wall at the goal line. So I think all in all, the Rams have played better games. Scoring 16, this is the lowest score of their season. They have not scored this few points. What was weird, Alexis, is that they managed to move the football. They won the time of possession battle. They had 6 more first downs than the Titans. It just came down to the fact that this is how important it is to generate turnovers, because even when you're not dominating, and the Titans offense by no stretch was dominating, Tannehill didn't even throw 150 yards on 27 passes. But, I think the Rams, did a nice job on that offensive side. But, at the end of the day, when you turn the ball over, when you give the ball away, it can give any team an opportunity to win a football game. And I think that's what happened. The Titans, they were able to generate those turnovers early on. And I think they really just rode the momentum there. And, the Rams had opportunities too. I mean, you mentioned the officiating, which I thought was, a disgrace, was god awful, whatever, but they're not the entire reason they lost the game. Did it end the game when they called that, in my opinion, an egregious call on Aaron Donald, the roughing the passer on the sidelines when they got a stop on 3rd and, long or whatever? Yeah, that was an awful call. It did end the game at that point because that game was over. They extended the drive, Titans scored, but that's not the entire game. And when you look at it, I mean, Darrell Henderson's averaging 5 yards per carry. He's only had 11 carries. They stopped running the football with him. You're getting good contributions out of Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Tyler Higbee, and then of course you get to these 3rd and short, these 4th and short type of opportunities here, or rather these situations because of poor play calling, and you don't convert. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is that they had plenty of opportunities. They moved the ball way better than the Titans did. But at the end of the day, 2 turnovers, first off, which they were able to get points off of. So 2 turnovers. And then in addition to that, the fact is they weren't able to make plays when they needed to down the stretch, 3rd, 4th down. And I mean, I'm just going to, call it like it is. Sean McVay and this Rams team with Sean McVay, they may come back. Like we've seen that with the Buffalo Bills, the 25 points down, they came back and almost won the game. But notice how every time the Rams come back, air quotes needed, with 14 plus points, being the differential, they always blow it at the end. They don't complete the comeback. To me, it's sad, but when Matthew Stafford threw an interception, that pick 6 to Byard, I kind of felt like the game was over.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Okay. So here's the thing about that. I think the first issue, there's a couple issues, if you want to call them that here. Byard had a really good game. Autry had a really good game. Jeffrey Simmons had a really good game. And a large part of they are very talented players. I'm not taking that away from them. You and I talked about this actually earlier today, that these guys are criminally underrated, in my opinion. I think that they are sometimes overlooked. Obviously, when people look at the Titans, they talk about their offense because there's a lot of big names on their offense, and people rarely talk about their defense, which is also pretty solid. And a large part of their success, aside from their talent against the Rams, was our offensive line. And the reason that I talk about that is there's a lot of, I don't want to say overreacting going on about our offensive line because they didn't play well. But I will say, and this is coming from someone who very much does not like our depth on offensive line. People who listen to the podcast know that about me. But here's the thing. We have to extend a little bit of grace here. Okay, obviously it's not acceptable the way that they played. Brian Allen did not play well. The rest of the offensive line did not play well. The Titans 100% won the matchup against our offensive line. It totally affected Matthew Stafford, and it really helped the Titans out. But it's okay for an offensive line to have a bad game. I won't say it's okay, but it's to be expected. Very rarely are offensive lines, except for the more elite ones in the NFL, going to have a perfect game every game, especially against a defense that put a lot of pressure on them and is very talented. And Jake, I feel like people might be losing perspective a little bit about our offensive line. What are your thoughts?
Ready for an out-of-world experience, fellas? Look no further than the Performance Package 4.0 from Manscaped. That has just taken off in not only the USA, but Canada, the UK, across Europe, Australia, South Africa, and Singapore. Inside this package, you'll find their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, Performance boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold your whole solar system in. First scheduled for liftoff, new Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer. This spaceship is here to guide you on a journey to trim your body, balls, butt, and even your anus. This 4th generation trimmer also features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents. Thanks to our advanced skin-safe technology, the Lawnmower 4.0 has a 7,000 RPM motor and a new multifunction on and off switch that can engage a travel lock and is even waterproof. The Lawnmower 4.0 also has a 4000K LED spotlight you can turn on and off when needed for a more precise shave throughout your travels across the universe. The Performance 4.0 also includes the Weed Whacker. It's like having a little astronaut to chop your worst weeds up the top of your nose and your ears. The Weed Whacker is also waterproof and uses a 9,000 RPM motor-powered 360-degree rotary dual-blade system. This nose and ear hair trimmer provides proprietary skin-safe technology, which helps prevent nicks, snags, and tugs in those delicate holes. Don't forget about the Crop Preserver, ball deodorant, and the Crop Reviver to help your little planets be on their A game while feeling the sun's heat. Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts to their Performance Package 4.0, the Manscaped Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag. Abort hairy balls, Buzz Lightyear that Woody with Manscaped. Well, I think that this is a top 5 offensive line in football, so I get you have, really high standards and all of that, which is fair. They've done a nice job this year. We just talked about how few of times, Stafford's been sacked this year, and seeing 5 sacks is surely something. Well, we got to go back to the beginning of this game, and the reason for that is because Matthew Stafford had 2 sacks on the first drive in which he held on to the football. Now, we can talk about how, the defense dropped 8 into coverage. We can talk about how it made it hard for Stafford, obviously, to make a throw. We can talk about the fact that, Stafford had nowhere to go with the football. But the offensive line, in theory, should only have to block for about 2.8 seconds per play. And that's about Jared Goff level of taking, before he, let's go with the ball, so to speak. Matthew Stafford's around the 2.5, 2.6 area of when he gets, releases the football. If you give him 2.8 seconds every play, he's golden. But after that is on Stafford. And he had a couple of those plays, actually a few of those plays, where, he's got to do a better job of, and look, this guy coming into the game was by far the MVP going into this game, the MVP favorite. Guys was starting to fall off. Stafford's played unbelievable this season, but he wasn't good enough to win this football game. And it's not just the interceptions. When you go back and you watch him taking those 2 sacks on the opening drive, keep in mind, they don't get the ball at the second half. So if you're getting the kickoff, you need to go down and score. You need to go down and you need to score. And in a game like this, against a team that, for whatever reason, they were 7.5 point underdogs on the road. A team that, coming into this game was the number one team in the AFC. For whatever reason, people thought this was going to be a blowout. You need to go down and you need to score on the first drive of the game. And they simply didn't do that. And, Stafford taking 2 sacks in the pocket like that, and 5 of his sacks went for 41 yards. You look at Ryan Tannehill, he was sacked 3 times for 18. So the sack yardage took him out of field goal range. The sack yardage kind of dictated things. And, really, I think the Titans leaned on those explosive plays, whether it be the sack, whether it be the fumble. I mean, they really leaned on that. And that's what I think broke open the Rams and, really rattled them. And then, after that, the interior offensive line just started getting their butt kicked left and right. I mean, there's one point in the game where David Edwards is literally sacking, Matthew Stafford by being shoved into him. That can't happen, but that's going to happen when you're doing your job. And you saw that early on in the game. You're doing your job. You're keeping your quarterback upright, and he can't deliver the football. Credit to what they were doing in the secondary, because they dropped a ton back there. They made it hard for Stafford to make his reads and find an open receiver. But coverage sacks don't have to be just get rid of the football. And I think that's something, obviously, McVay will be talking about to him all week long, getting rid of the football, making better decisions, because eating the ball it's not always the worst decision to take a sack. It's a bad decision when your sack is going to be a 12-yard loss and takes you out of field goal range. We've seen that way too much, with top quarterbacks around the league like Josh Allen and, Lamar Jackson and what have you. But, Matthew Stafford doing that last night, that was a huge, part of the game that really has gone unsaid.
Yeah, obviously not a good game from Matthew Stafford. I don't think anyone is denying that who watched the game. I think, again, like I said with the offensive line, it's important to keep perspective here. We shouldn't be overreacting. We shouldn't be making Goff comparisons. We shouldn't be doing all this stuff that I see a lot of people doing on Twitter. Listen, like I said, it's about taking, for your team, it's about taking responsibility and saying, yeah, Matthew Stafford had a bad game. It's not Matthew Stafford is a bad quarterback. It's Matthew Stafford had a bad game. It happens. It's the NFL. He was going against a very tough defense. He was getting a lot of pressure. And did he make bad decisions? Yes. Does he need to work on that? Is that something that he's going to be looking at? I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's going to be something that he talks about with his coaches and he works on in practice, and he tries to, not repeat the performance that he had this game. I think it's okay to admit that Matthew Stafford had a bad game and also say that he's still one of the better quarterbacks in this league. Both things can be true. So again, I think that we have to keep some perspective here. You see great quarterbacks all the time have games where they look really off. And that was just the case. I don't think that we should be overreacting on Matthew Stafford. I just think that people are upset naturally, but I want everyone to take a deep breath and have some perspective. The word that I keep using is perspective. Jake, the last thing I think, because there's really, again, there's not a ton to talk about, this episode, because like I said, I think that we're in agreement that it kind of just comes down to the Rams got outplayed, and that's it. But the last thing I do want to talk about is the coaching bit, because I think the Rams also got outcoached, and I want to hear your perspective on the play calling against the Titans and what you would have done differently.
I felt like with the Titans, they just went away from the run. I know there's going to be people that disagree, but I'm not talking about running it with Sony Michel, who averaged 2.9 yards per carry. Quite frankly, I like Michel, but he's not cutting it. He's not efficient. And, Darrell Henderson comes in there behind the same offensive line, and, he's averaging 5 yards per carry. And it's a consistent thing. And it just, to me, that is an issue, first and foremost. The second thing is, just constantly taking these snaps out of the shotgun. And then on top of it, you're going to have moments where you're going to want to use play action, but if you abandon the run, you can't use play action. When they ran the play action bootleg on 4th down to try to convert that, when Stafford got hit after the play, that play right there is exactly why You can't just run play action all the time. And they don't run it all the time, but in this game, they would run play action without actually running the football. The Titans didn't buy it, and they were all over that play. I will say this is a game that should open up people's eyes. If you don't think that the Rams have any sort of argument to go out and get Odell Beckham Jr., I'm not going to say you're out of your mind, but this should honestly give you some, this is your word now, perspective. Jacob Harris is out for the season. Tutu Atwell's out for the season. Deshaun Jackson's in Las Vegas. So should Woods, Kupp, or Jefferson go down? You know I like Ben Skoranek as much as you do. I really like him. But are you confident in Ben Skoranek and J.J. Koski going into the playoffs if there's an injury like that? Because this is what I'm talking about, is that I think this brought the Rams back down to earth a little bit. I think people just assumed, well, they don't need a guy like that because they're already, they're great. But I don't really agree with it,
Yeah, I know. I think you're right. I think I'll be honest. Before the Jacob Harris injury, I was like, no way on Odell Beckham. And listen, I really like Odell Beckham. I don't like some of the things I've been hearing about his attitude and behavior, but I do as a player really like Odell Beckham. And as you mentioned, we are now thin at wide receiver. We have some injuries. I really like Ben Skoranek. He's not Odell Beckham Jr. He's a rookie and he has time. I would not be opposed to bringing in Odell Beckham should he clear waivers. That's something we're still waiting to hear on. There's a lot of rumors out there about teams he's interested in, two of them being the Seahawks and the 49ers, which is a bit disheartening. I don't buy it though, because I think that Odell Beckham is looking for a contender, truly, based on his actions and his words and the behavior. And like I said, I'm not a huge fan of it, but listen, if he's going to help the Rams win a Super Bowl, I'm all for it. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. He's going to have interest should he clear waivers. But Jake, I think that's going to do it for us this episode. I mean, it's obviously really disheartening. We had a bad loss. Again, I give the Titans credit. I think they are a good football team. I think people aren't talking about that enough. We should extend a little bit of grace to ourselves. We did lose to a very good defense.
Yeah, but the Rams have lost to the top team in the NFC and the AFC, if that's how you want to look at it. I mean, they're 15-3 combined record. And Alexis, I've actually seen this, and I get this. People would also say, well, this is why the Rams brought in Matthew Stafford. And to that, I'd say that is not the reason. The reason they brought in Matthew Stafford is because they needed to actually show defenses that they're not afraid to throw down the field. The 6 yards per pass wasn't doing it. And what it comes down to is Matthew Stafford has changed the entire outlook of the Los Angeles Rams. We still have not seen Von Miller in action. This team is still not fully healthy. They don't have Cam Akers. They don't have Sebastian Joseph Day. I mean, they've had injuries. And, I think especially, a guy like Justin Hollins that was playing really good football, So at the end of the day, look, I understand yes, Matthew Stafford, you brought him in to win those games. Yes, you can throw it in our faces that Matthew Stafford has some really bad, win-loss percentage against, winning record teams, whatever. But that is neither here nor there. They brought him in, and what they've done already, they're 7-2. They were 7-1 to come into this season, come into this game. If you look the last 2 years, they've been 5-3. Similar strength of schedule, but they've been 5-3. So already Matthew Stafford's made an impact. And we shouldn't have to explain that, but that's what it's come down to. And Matthew Stafford, sitting there with, 24 touchdowns at this point. Last year, Jared Goff had 20 in total. I mean, it's just not even, you know what I'm saying? It's not really even a comparison that you can make. Especially when he doesn't have the running game that Goff had with Todd Gurley in the past. Yeah,
I mean, valid points. And again, I think that I'm just ready, with this episode. After we make this episode, I'm not thinking about this game anymore.
I'm with you on that.
I'm over this. So let's put it to bed. Let's take a deep breath. We play San Francisco next week. Monday Night Football, another primetime game. But until then, guys, as always, if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at the Alexis Craft. You can follow Jake at JK Bogan. And until next time, guys, stay safe, take care, and go Rams. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code DTR at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com, and make sure to use code DTR. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped.